Dante's Purgatory is full of surprises. And, Dante is full of surprises. Now, in hell, the surprises are usually very bad. We're surprised to learn something, and usually it means that we think we're at the bottom of the elevator, but there's another floor below. You're in the basement. You may say the moral basement. In Purgatory, surprises are generally good things. Why? Because this is a place of moral reform, of regeneration. And although I've been talking about Purgatory, we're not yet in Purgatory. Interestingly for Dante, there's a place kind of before you get to Purgatory where souls are kind of ferried toward Purgatory. Scholars call this anti-purgatory, A-N-T-E, anti-purgatory. And interestingly, Dante keeps us in anti-purgatory for almost a quarter of the Purgatorio. So anti-purgatory is very important. It's a kind of a waiting room for purgatory. And as it turns out, as we'll discover, the waiting room exists because people have, and so many of us are guilty of this, Augustine was guilty of this, make me chaste, O Lord, but not yet. When we keep God waiting, Dante says that God's going to keep us waiting. So you've got people who need to go through purgatory because the moral regeneration of purgatory is necessary for heaven, but they can't begin the process because they kept God waiting generally for almost all of their life, and so they have to themselves wait a little bit now. The first figure you meet in Purgatory, and I mentioned him before, this is Cato, the Roman Stoic. And Cato is a surprise on two counts. Number one, he was a pagan, which is to say he lived at the time before Christ. He didn't know about Christ. He wasn't a Christian. So you would expect him to be in Inferno 4. You'd expect him to be in limbo, in the place of the so-called virtuous pagans, where, by the way, Virgil belongs. Virgil has to go back at some point and rejoin the other figures in limbo. But Cato's here, and Cato's destined for heaven. That's a surprise, and it's an even bigger surprise when we know that Cato was someone who took his own life. But here's how Dante describes that. This is now Virgil talking to Cato. You found death sweet in Utica for freedom's sake. So what Virgil is saying is that your death was not a case of running away from life or rejecting the gift of life. You gave your life for freedom. In that sense, you are a freedom fighter. You are to some degree a martyr. And that's why Dante has Cato here in Purgatory en route to heaven. Now, pretty soon, Dante runs into another character. He sees a group of souls kind of making their way, and he recognizes one of them. And it's a friend of his, or a guy who died in Dante's own lifetime, but Dante knew him. He was actually a singer, and his name was Casella. And Dante says to Casella, in effect, he goes, you died a little while ago. How come you're here? How did you just get here? Because Casella apparently was just brought over. And Casella basically says, look, I normally would have to wait because I kept God waiting. So this is the idea here of sort of getting your due. But Casella goes, but my entry into Purgatory proper was hurried, was accelerated by a jubilee year that was declared in Rome. And that has sort of opened the gates of Purgatory, and lots of souls are being brought in right now. And that's why you see all these people moving around you. So we have to realize now that this Jubilee year, by the way, the first one in church history, this Jubilee year, this year of forgiveness, you might say, was proclaimed by none other than Pope Boniface VIII. This is the guy that, quite frankly, Dante hates. This is the guy who was directly responsible for Dante's exile. This is a guy who is himself deep in hell. And yet, and this shows you the complexity of Dante, Dante's point is he might be in hell, but he was still the Pope. And as the Pope, he still has legal authority. Legal authority, of course, in the canonical domain. What that authority is, we'll come to realize in a moment. It's not unlimited by any means. But nevertheless, Dante's point is this, that just as a king who's a bad king, but makes a law, The law is a law. The king has the legal authority to make the law. But so Pope Boniface has declared the Jubilee. And even though Pope Boniface's own motives might have been thoroughly corrupt, I want to raise money for the church, I want to do this, I want to do that, Dante's point is, nevertheless, it here, right down in Purgatory, it is accelerating the movement of souls to begin this purgation process. And Casella is part of this. And so Dante says to Casella, basically, hey, Casella, you're a heck of a singer, kind of strike up a tune. So you have this amazing scene here in Purgatory where Dante is like, let's hear one, put up your banjo and sort of sing a song. And Casella begins to sing. And this is a little bit of Dante-esque humor. Basically, Casella begins to sing a song whose words are from Dante. So here you have Dante the poet, and he creates this. He has this character, Casella, who is using Dante, the poet's own words, to sing this song. But just as Casella begins to start singing this song, and it's, of course, given in Italian, Cato, stern Roman kind of gatekeeper of Purgatory, shows up, and he basically goes, stop this nonsense. Enough of this nonsense. It's time to kind of get moving. And at first glance, this may seem kind of inappropriate. It may seem kind of, what, is there no singing in Purgatory? But the point here is not that singing is bad. The point is, and I'll pick this up in the next segment. How am I on time, honey? I'm coming to the end. Oh, I've got it. Okay. It turns out that it's the wrong kind of singing. Or to put it differently, what Dante is asking Casella to do is, like, let's have a performance. And there's all kinds of singing in Purgatory, but it's generally, you'll see it's communal singing. It's souls singing together, and they're actually singing about redemption. They're singing, in this case, a little earlier in the very same canto, you have souls, and they're singing a song, and I'll come to the song in the next segment, but it is, Dante gives it actually in Latin, in exitu Israel de Egypto, which basically means when Israel came out of Egypt.